Hello and welcome. I'm Peter, and this is Season 3, Part 2 of the Bryan patch notes. So, in Part 1, for those of you who didn't know, we took a look at Bryan's new move, Snake Rampage. I showed what the frame data was, the properties of it, the potentials of it, the lack thereof potentials, and a whole host of other things. So today we're going to actually look at, in part 2, the remaining patch notes that Bryan got. I think I'm going to be breaking this down into 2 parts simply because it might get a little long. I'm already anticipating this. So yeah, this is going to be part 2 and there's going to be another part 3. So if you enjoy any of the content here and you're looking to learn more, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell below. I teach Bryan as well as some Tekken fundamentals as well. So if that interests you, go ahead and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's get going. Alrighty, first up is Rage Drive. So, for those of you who didn't know, in regards to Bryan's Rage Drive, there was an itsy bitsy tiny little... Am I off center? Why am I off center here? Anyways, there was an itsy bitsy tiny little issue with Bryan's Rage Drive, which was if you did a Rage Drive with the input forward, neutral, and then back 1+2, then you would actually get a jet upper. So if you look at the input command that I have here that I've recorded from season 2, you get a jet upper instead of a Rage Drive. And this can be a huge fucking headache, because if you're trying to close out a round with a mid because you think your opponent's ducking, and instead you doing something like a run up, or better yet, a dash into Rage Drive and get a jet upper, you're going to get launch punished a lot of times by your opponent, and you don't close out the round, instead you lose. And so in season 2, the way to actually do a dash into Rage Drive required you to do forward, neutral, back, and then back 1+2. So that was the way to actually do it. But since then, in season 3 now, this has been completely patched out. So if you look in the inputs I have here, in season 3, if you do forward, neutral, back 1+2, you no longer get jet upper, instead you get the proper Rage Drive. And the same goes if you use the old method as well. If you do forward, neutral, back 1+2, that still works as well. So very good quality of life change. This, you know, again, like I said, didn't happen a whole lot, but when it did, it was infuriating. Okay, so next up is Bryan's cancels, and this pertains to 3 moves in particular. Now, the 3 moves are 1-4, 2-1, and back 2-1, as well as quarter circle forward 4-1. So out of these 3 moves, if you pressed up or down, Bryan would do a sidestep to cancel the back knuckle, I guess. So in the patch notes, you'll see it says fixed an issue in which the timing during sidestep 1+2 and during sidestep 3+4 could be performed was faster. Now in season 2, if you canceled any of these 3 moves into 3+4 or 1+2, I'm going to use 3+4 as an example. It could come out super quick, almost to the point that you don't even see the sidestep, right? But now in season 3, so if you compare them side by side, in season 3, you can no longer cancel it to the point where you don't see the sidestep at all. Or you could barely see the sidestep at all. In season 3, you make a wider arc now when you go into 1+2 or 3+4. So what this means in my opinion, is that Bryan's cancel game, at least out of these three moves, is nerfed. This is a very minor nerf in my opinion, because these cancels are kind of gimmicky, right? This is stuff that I mean, I've seen Jimmy J Tran hit people with this, with especially quarter circle forward 4-1. Canceled into 3+4. He gets counter hits off of this because his opponent's pressing buttons, and he cancels it super quick. So I've seen it happen, and in my opinion, this is kind of a gimmicky thing, or a knowledge test rather. But overall, I do think this is a very minor nerf, and the only reason I say this is a very minor nerf is because one, like I said, it was a gimmick, and then two, in season 2, yes, you could cancel it very, very, very quickly, but at the same time, you also had the option to do a wider arc, so a wider sidestep into 3+4 or 1+2. So overall, now in season 3, you just can't do a short sidestep. You have to commit to the full sidestep before you press 1+2 or 3+4. Whereas in season 2, you had the option of choosing if you wanted to do a wide sidestep or a short sidestep. Next up, PK combo. That's weird. My Alexa just turned on. Anyways, PK combo, or punch kick combination. So this was buffed for Bryan in 3 different ways, but I only think that there's 2 buffs here really. So we'll go with the first one, and this pertains to the first hit. So the 2 and the punch kick combination now leaves the opponent closer. In season 2, this could sometimes be an issue if you throw out a 2 and then another 2. So I have an example of hits from season 2, and if you now compare this to season 3, the 2 into 2 will always connect, because the season 3 changes now cause the characters to be closer, and it doesn't push them back nearly as far, or push Bryan back nearly as far. So this is a welcome change, and you're gonna see how this affects later on in the next portion of it. The second part about the first hit that was changed is the increased lower range of the attack. Now, I don't think that this really changed anything for Bryan in terms of combos, because I mean, I can think of a couple combos really where you do use the 2 for a little bit more damage. But all in all, I think this increased lower range of the attack really doesn't make a huge difference in how it affects Bryan. So that's not a buff or nerf in my opinion. Now, the best part about all of these patch notes for the PK combo is the second hit. Now, they decrease the distance between the characters and the opponents when the second hit connects. Now, this is important because in PK combo is +6, right? And you're thinking like, well, all of Bryan's moves from this distance, which is basically range 1 or 1.5-ish, are going to connect, right? Wrong. In the past, if you connected 2-3 at its max range, you could not get a forward 3 check properly. But now in season 3, if you compare it side by side, you now get a forward 3 check, even at max range on 2-3. So this is a welcome change, especially because forward 3 comes out in 16 frames, and 2-3 is +6, which means that you'll always trade in your favor with the 10 frame jab. So this is really important. And this is also one of those things that I think is a buff to Bryan, especially because if anytime you're on plus frames, like something like +6 frames on hit, you definitely want to pressure your opponent and check them. And with this, now Bryan can properly check his opponent with forward 3 to remain neutral on block. Double spin Tomahawk, or better known as 434. Yeah, I don't know why I decided to use all of these names in the move list, but I guess I thought it was fun, so I went with it. Hey, what the hell? Anyways, so this move, big buff incoming. This move has been buffed significantly in season 3. Now, I'm gonna go over the multiple aspects in how it was buffed. So prepare yourself, this is going to be a long section. Now, the first thing that was buffed was the 4-3, the double spin kick. The first thing that they did with this is the move now chains together. What this means is it is a natural combo in season 3. Before, in season 2, this was not a natural combo. 4-3, if the 4 hit, the 3 could be blocked. Now, this was a issue for Bryan because, first of all, Bryan does not have a 12 frame punish in season 2. 4-3 was not a 12 frame punish. 4 was a 12 frame punish, but it wasn't that great. Aside from the range, it didn't provide you with very much damage, and the plus frames wasn't that great. It was all of, I think, +4 frames on hit. So for the most part, Bryan's would always default to 1-4 or 2-3 as the 12 frame punish in season 2. And for certain moves that were -12 on block and had just a little bit of pushback, 1-4 and 2-3 couldn't connect. And you're probably thinking, well, what move is that? Well, it's a universal move actually. It's the mid get up kick, or mid wake up kick, or I guess mid recovery kick. I don't know what the hell it's called, but it's this move here, right? Bryan normally would punish all his -12 stuff with 1-4 or 2-3, but in this case, 1-4 does not reach. And in season 2, all he got was a standing 4, and that just sucks. It feels bad. Like you get the read that your opponent's going to do a mid recovery kick, and then you press 4 to punish them. It's like, ooh, oh, look at me, I punished you, and now I'm +4. Not even that great. So this wasn't very good as an option. But this all changes in season 3. So in season 3, 4-3, the double spin kick now is natural string, is a natural string. It guarantees 27 damage on hit, and this is a great addition to Bryan's arsenal. So this is really important, especially when it comes to the -12 department, like mid recovery kicks. When your opponent is down, and now in season 3 you can get a proper punish on it. Now, the second thing that's changed about this is because now it is a natural string, what they did was they took 4-3, the double spin kicks, and instead of now being +4 frames on hit, now it is +2 frames instead. So in exchange for being able to have a natural string, this string is now less plus on hit. So you really have to choose sometimes if you want to go for that 12 frame punish, or if you want to go for the frames, right? If you want to go for frames, go for 1-4 or 2-3. But if you want damage, then you go for 4-3. But in the case of mid recovery kicks, this is a no-brainer. If you see them do a mid recovery kick, you block it, you go for 4-3 now in season 3. And this is a fantastic addition. Despite the fact that we lose 2 frames, I think this is a great addition to Bryan now that he has a proper 12 frame punish. So the next thing that changed is 4-3-4. So if you want to look at it in terms of levels, 4-3 got a buff, and now 4-3-4 also gets a buff. So what they did is that the last hit now of 4-3-4, the 4, they shortened the recovery time of the move by 3 frames. Now, this doesn't seem like much, and you're probably wondering, well, how does this change anything? Well, it makes this Bryan staple combo, which was in season 2 still. This was definitely in season 2. Boa Crusher into the double knees into 4-3-4, into back 3, and then snake dash, cross bazooka, forward 2-1, right? So this was already in season 2. And this wasn't the only combo, that Bryan could do out of it. He could also get this off of his back 1 into double knees, into 4-3-4, or even orbital into double knees into 4-3-4. So this Boa Crusher into basically 4-3-4 was not the only combo. So there was a couple of moves that allowed this. Now in season 2, this was kind of difficult to do, to connect the back 3 after 4-3-4, simply because if you didn't dash up at the right time after 4-3-4 in season 2, you would get one of 2 things, right? If you didn't dash up in time. The first thing that would happen is that you would miss your back 3, and you just be like, ooh, I just kicked empty space. Ooh, just kicked empty space. So that was one of the things that could happen. The other thing is, if you tried to dash too quickly before 4-3-4 recovered, if you dashed too quickly, you got no dash, which looked even worse, because it's just like, oh wow, I did a screw on my opponent and I decided not to follow up. Yeah, so this in season 2 was kind of difficult to do, and depending on if you're playing offline, this was not really that bad. But if you're playing online with 4 or 3 bars, this combo is notoriously difficult and could potentially be dropped very easily. But now in season 3, this combo is much easier to do online. Those 3 frames, believe me, make a huge difference. So the Boa Crusher into double knees into 4-3-4, or a back 1 into double knees into 4-3-4, much easier to do. So you still have to time it. You still have to time the dash into back 3, but this combo is much easier to do. So I think whereas this combo used to be a more advanced Bryan combo, I think this is more leaning towards I guess an intermediate Bryan combo now. So I think this is a very welcome change on all levels, right? In terms of the 4-3 being a natural string now, even though we're 2 less frames, as well as the fact that 4-3-4 now has plus 3 frames recovery. It recovers 3 frames faster. So this is a huge buff to Bryan. Warning, incoming stealth nerf. Yep, just when you thought we were done with Bryan's changes for 4-3 and 4-3-4, as much as I said this was a buff to him, he also got a nerf on this as well. So what this means is 4-3 on counter hit in season 2, you could guarantee a 4-3-4. This was the, I guess, easy Bryan Magic 4 combo. A lot of characters in this game have easy Magic 4 combos. For instance, some characters could get 4-1. For instance, I think Master Raven has that. Shaheen has that. But Bryan, he has 4-3 in season 2 into 4-3-4. This is no longer the case. In season 3 now, there has been a stealth nerf to 4-3 counter hit into 4-3-4. And sorry in advance, I don't have footage of in season 2 how 4-3 counter hit into 4-3-4 connected. I did not foresee this, so I didn't record it in advance. Now, anyways, what this means is, Bryan players out there, you gotta put your big boy pants on and learn to do the proper Magic 4 combo. So now the main thing is you have to do counter hit 4 into either quarter circle back to 4, or you have to do Magic 4 into dash jab. Okay, those are your two options that you can use. So you're gonna have to put those big boy pants on in order to get those big boy damage. And before any of you say, oh yeah, there's still, 4-3 combos. Yes, I realize this. There are 4-3 counter hit combos. But in my opinion, these 4-3 counter hit combos really are just really lackluster because they're not that much easier. And in fact, I would say in some cases it's actually harder than learning to do the proper Magic 4 into either Sway Smash, which I guess is quarter circle back 2-4, or Magic 4 into dash jab. I recommend just learning, if you're at that stage where you're ready to do the Magic 4 combos and incorporate it into your gameplay, learn to do it properly and not do the janky shit here where you're doing like 4-3 into down back 2 into Sway Smash. That is harder to do in my opinion, especially if you're playing online. That's going to be harder to do. And there's other options out there I'm sure as well, like 4-3 down back forward 1. This shit is really inconsistent just from my testing. Maybe my execution's bad or whatever, but it seems really inconsistent, some of the 4-3 options on counter hit. So yeah, as much as we got a buff on this, we also kind of got a nerf as well. So overall though, I still think this is a buff to Bryan. Elbow smash down 2. Okay, so this move got some massive buffs from season 2 to season 3. And basically there were 3 changes to this move. First and foremost, the easiest one to understand, damage, right? The name of the game, it seems across the board in season 2 to season 3 was damage buffs. So in season 2, this did 14 damage. And in season 3, they buffed this to do 17. And of course, as you know, on counter hit, you're gonna get more damage as well. So no need to say anything further about that. More damage is always better. Now, the next thing, and it's a huge change, is that it went from +1 on hit to +8 on hit, right? Season 2, this was +1 on hit, which meant literally nothing, right? +1 on hit, your opponent could crouch cancel and sidestep any options that you want to throw out. Also, if it was only +1 on hit, forces crouch, your opponent could do a dick jab, they could do a while standing 4, they could do a hop kick, right? They could do a whole host of things. But now in season 3, because it's been buffed a massive +8 on hit, and still forces crouch, this is a huge buff. Big change. So this allows you to basically get a free mix-up on hit. Now, the third and final change is that in season 2, down 2 sometimes would push your opponent a little further away than you would like, but they changed that in season 3 in that they brought the opponent and you closer together. And this seems to be an all-around change to Bryan in general, that moves like PK combo leaves your opponent closer. As you'll see, mock kick also leaves your opponent closer on hit. A bunch of stuff leaves the opponent closer on hit for Bryan so that he can apply pressure better. So this seems to be an all-around thing for Bryan, leaving opponents closer. Now, before you at me on this, so I thought when I saw these changes that this was going to be massive for Bryan, like down 2. I was gonna have to rewrite the whole book on Bryan fundamentals on how you should use down 2, because it does come out in 14 frames, which is a great speed for a mid, and is only -2 on block, which isn't terrible, and gives massive plus frames on hit. So when I saw this, I thought, wow, Bryan is going to be SSS tier. And then I saw this tweet from Jimmy, and I was confused. I was legitimately confused when I saw this tweet that the down 2 buff isn't really going to change Bryan in terms of how he's played, because it's not going to be that great a move. And I thought one of two things: Jimmy had gone off the deep end, or like usual, Jimmy was right. And I doubted Jimmy for a long time, about 2 weeks, because I tested down 2 out for about 2 weeks, and I came to realize that Jimmy, damn it, that man is always right. Jimmy was right about down 2. It's not that great a move, and this buff is not that big a buff for Bryan, the down 2. Now, don't get me wrong, down 2 is fantastic on hit. If you manage to land down 2 on hit, go for a mix-up, go for something crazy, you name it, right? It's great. But the issue, and let me explain to you guys why Jimmy came to the idea of it, and how I came to the idea that Jimmy was right and that down 2 is not that great, even with the buffs. So down 2 is, as we know, 14 frames, -2 on block. So the frame data isn't terrible, but if you dissect it a little further, we'll see that outside of landing this on hit, on block, you cannot just use down 2 and chain it into down 2 into chaining it into down 2. Not in the same sense that you could for a character like Fang, right? Or other characters who have 14 frame down forward ones, which I guess I'm comparing it to as an equivalent. So Fang has down forward 1, which is 14 frames to come out, but is 0 on block. And if you've ever played against Fang, he can kind of do down forward 1 into down forward 1 into down forward 1, right? He's going to do this multiple times, and he can afford to do this because it's 0 on block. And the reason why Bryan cannot do this is because down forward 2 is -2 on block. So the next down 2 that you throw out, even though the first one was blocked, is coming out in 16 frames. And this 16 frame threshold is important. This 16 frame threshold means that your opponent can slip between a down 2 and a down 2 with a hop kick. And this is devastating, especially because, as you know, hop kicks can lead to big ass damage. So down 2 into down 2 can be snuffed out by a hop kick, whereas something like Fang's down forward 1 into down forward 1, if the opponent decides to do a hop kick, he can actually float the opponent during the hop kick and still manage to convert it into a combo. Whereas Bryan in this case wouldn't be able to. He would just get hop kick and lose a third of his health, or maybe more. So that's number one reason. It's -2 on block, and you can't use it as a generic 14 frame mid constantly. The next reason is because down 2 is not that great on recovery on whiff. Down forward 1s generally have pretty good whiff recovery. If you whiff a down forward 1, it's very rare that your opponent's going to whiff punish you for it with something big. However, with Bryan's down 2 elbow smash, it is a little different because the recovery on it is not great. This time that Bryan winds up his arm and shoots it down and slams it down, it takes a bit of time for Bryan to recover on this. And in the meantime, while you're recovering, you could get launched. So this is the second reason why down 2 isn't that great. It's got limited range. Its whiff recovery is not so great. On block, it's not the equivalent of a down forward 1 that's 0 or -1 on block. So overall, damn it, Jimmy was right. And yeah, this is only an ever so slight buff to Bryan, even though he went from +1 forcing crouch on hit to +8 forcing crouch on hit. Yeah. Low kick, a down 4. So this move got a great buff, very good quality of life change, which is an additional 2 damage, right? And I can just hear some of you guys out now. It's like, oh my god, why are you so excited about 2 damage? Let me explain. Season 1, as we know, it was 11 damage, and now Season 2, it's 13. Now, this 2 damage on the surface doesn't seem like much, but I want you to consider that a standard jab in this game from Bryan is 7 damage. So, if you land 3 down 4s, which is completely conceivable, like landing 3 down 4s is completely conceivable. This is the equivalent of almost getting a jab, right? It's an additional 2 damage, so if you land 3 of these, you get 6 damage, almost a jab. And how many times in the game where you're like, somebody just let me buy a jab, I just want to jab him, I want to jab him so I can just close the game out. Oh my god, I just need to close the game out, he's almost dead. This is where the 2 damage, additional 2 damage comes in. So if you landed 3 down 4s in the game and you needed that one jab, that one jab was basically there now. So this is a great change. In addition, down 4 is a fantastic low for Bryan. It is 0 on hit, which means that you are completely neutral, and anytime that you can pull neutral is great. Ideally we get plus, but because this is such a fast low, it has really good range. It hits from almost range 2. This is great. Not to mention, at max tip range, down 4 is not punishable. It's virtually unpunishable at max range. So this is already a very good low poke from Bryan, and on top of that we're getting 2 damage. And this 2 damage, again, doesn't seem like much, but you can't take a low like this and just like, let me add 10 damage to this thing. Yeah, you can't do that. So the additional 2 damage, great change. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video wasn't too short and it wasn't too long. I hope the length was just right. And in the next video we're gonna take a look at the remaining patch changes to Bryan's moves. So we're gonna take a look at things like hammer driver, chopping elbow, mock punch, mock kick, wedge driver, all sorts of stuff, the remaining kabang. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was at least insightful and give you a little peek into my brain and how I thought and perceived these changes. If you enjoyed this content, please go ahead and leave me a comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be up to date on any time I release new videos. And once again, thank you to the Patreons. They have really helped in growing this channel, and I want to give every one of them a shout out. So with that, thank you for watching. I'm Peter, and I'm signing out. Till next time, guys, stay tuned.